Okay, so I'm going to walk you through the process of getting the data from the R2 system and importing it into SAP B1 via the SAP Import utility. On the way, we're going to have to go through an Excel file, and I'll walk you through the steps as we meet them. So this is the AVTech server, well, the server formerly known as AVTech. It's the server being used for ION to host the SAP database and other parts of this integration. So on that server we have a folder. So the server is called SAP SRV. Within that we have a folder SAP2 interchange, or SAP R2 interchange rather, and then we have the R2 to SAP. So just to go back here, there's basically two files in that folder. One is for the stuff coming from R2 and going into SAP, and the other is coming from SAP and going into R2. We're focusing on the one where the information is coming from R2. So Agla is outputting a file with sort of regular frequency. Yesterday she output two files. So I'm just going to pick the first of those files. So traditionally we were able to use the output file that we find here. However, now I just need to take the ID number. I'm going to copy that. And then I need to connect onto the R2 server. So we just go to Remote Desktop. Launch the R2 Launchpad. I log in with John's details. I go to Reports, Custom Reports, and I come down to Integration. Click on Integration Export, click on Run, and then I enter or paste the number that we had selected from here. Excuse me. So we are looking for this file. And paste. That's equal to. And we need to ensure that we also select the option Data to Grid. So we'll know when this has worked because we're going to get a rather colourful file in a grid format, which we can then export to Excel. We can't really see the button down there, but it does say we're exporting to Excel. So you notice that each of these records has been assigned the batch ID number, which we entered initially. So when the export is done from the R2 system, that batch ID is assigned, and then all transactions in this batch are grouped together. Plus. Okay, so that's the information popped out to Microsoft Excel. So then I'm just going to File and save that information. And if we can, we'll try and go back to the SAP server. And we'll go to the folder we were looking at earlier, R2, and we'll pick up the folder that we already had there. This is an Excel file. I'm just going to rename it with the ID number and save that out. So I should be able to delete this, go back a few steps, and we now have the Excel file in there, and we have the other file that was created yesterday. Copy that, come back here and run the report again. Still have the option Data to Grid turned on. Just paste that. Equal to. And export to Excel again. And File and Save As. So hopefully we now have the data exported into an Excel format, which we can work with on another machine. Okay, so we now have the two folders, and they both have an Excel file contained within. So I'm going to copy the first of those Excel files, and I'm going to drop this onto my own computer. So I'm only just dropping it onto my own computer because we don't have Excel on the SAP server. Okay, so we've exported the two files now, or rather saved them onto a folder where I can actually use them. And I have another file here, which is basically my template file. And I'll just show you what that's going to look like. It's basically it's an Excel workbook. It has 4 sheets in it. The first sheet is more or less blank. We'll just put that to one side for a moment, and we'll open up the first of these files. And what we should find now is that we have the same sequence of columns in our template as we do in the export, which we've just taken from the R2 system. So I'm going to highlight all the columns that are populated in that workbook, and we're right down to the end on that. Yes, we are. So we're going to copy that, and we're going to paste the information in here. Because there are 2 files in this occasion, then I am going to delete that grand total, and I'm going to go then to my second exported file and do the same thing. I'm just going to copy all of the data from there, just ignore the grand total. I'm going to paste that information in. So now we have information within this Excel file. It runs down to just over 1,000 rows. So what we have then is a number here which represents an invoice number within the R2 system. That needs to be converted into a number which we can read in SAP. And the rule that I've developed is that any invoice number beginning with IS is to be replaced by 10. OR is replaced by 20, IA by 30, IRDS by 40, and I think IST was the last one now. If I go to the sheet called R2, I can see that within here I have a formula which is doing that conversion for me. So it's looking at the sheet called from R2, it's looking at the value in cell B2. It's taken from the left hand side the first 3 characters, and if they equal IST, it'll replace it with a 50. If they equal IS, it'll replace them with 10, IR with 20, IA with 30, IRDS with 40. Okay, this is necessary because we have to have separate sequences, because on the R2 side, each of these offices or locations creates its own sequence of invoice numbers, each starting at 000001. So if we didn't do it this way, we'd end up with an overlap on the numbers, and that would conflict on the SAP side, and SAP would get confused and it simply wouldn't import the data for us. There are various other conversions that we have to do then as well. For example, the billing date, well, the formats of the dates that SAP will accept are all based on 4 characters, 4 digits for the year, 2 for the month, 2 for the day. And there's various things going on within this this Excel template, which converts the data into information in a format that we can accept on the SAP side. So the first of the sheets that I'm creating is one called Project, and you'll see here then that we only have records every so often. Again, Excel is set up so that we only want to import the project once, but we have the details relating to the project on every line of each invoice. So basically what I'm doing is I'm looking here to see if the values in this row or this cell are the same as the ones above. So we're just going to do it once, and then we'll ignore it every other time until we come to a change over to the next row. So we'll find that cell number C43 will contain the last line of the previous invoice, and then cell C44 will contain 45 even, will contain the new value. So if we just actually look at that down here, we should find that the numbers sort of tally up in that sense. And then we have a changeover from there's one invoice, and then we have a different invoice number coming through after that. Okay, so everything ought to be good to go. We will save this information now. We need to save it as a text file format, and the convention I use is just the name of the relevant file and the year, month, and day. Get some warnings then that change the name of the file down here as well.